Three HOA goons with bolt cutters just forced their way into my family's century-old barn at 5:47 a.m. Too bad. Sheriff Calder was waiting inside with his morning coffee and a federal arrest warrant. 8 months ago, Marla Whitcomb was just another nosy neighbor griping about my barn's weathered red paint. Today, she's facing federal charges for mail fraud,
this lawnmower is a clear violation,
and a plot to steal land worth $2.8 million in mineral rights she never realized I owned. The metallic clank of cutters biting through my padlock echoed across the frosted Colorado morning. That sharp, bitter smell of cut steel mixed with old hay and wood smoke from my chimney. Then the barn door creaked open, and three sets of eyes went wide as dinner plates when they saw that gleaming badge in the dawn light. Pure panic. 8 months of documented harassment about to become federal prison. What would you do if your HOA tried to frame you to steal your family's century-old property? And where are you watching from? Drop your location below. I guarantee your area has HOA horror stories that'll make this look like amateur hour. But to understand how suburban Queen Bee Marla Whitcomb became a federal defendant, we have to start from the beginning. My name's Nolan Harrow, and this land has been in my family since 1923. My grandfather bought these 15 acres when Colorado was still more cattle than suburbs. Back when a man's handshake meant something, and neighbors actually talked instead of hiding behind Ring doorbells and HOA bylaws. I'm 52, recently divorced, and work as an electrician around Jefferson County. After the divorce papers got signed, I moved back to the old homestead. Seemed like the truly right place to start over. The original farmhouse sits on a small rise with grandfather's weathered red barn down the slope and a small apple orchard that still produces decent fruit if you don't mind the occasional worm. Every morning I'd sit on that wraparound porch with my coffee, listening to meadowlarks singing over the soft, distant hum of Highway 36, the rich aroma of fresh ground beans mixed with the sweet scent of apple blossoms in spring. The barn housed my woodworking shop. Turned out, I had a knack for custom cabinets and furniture. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills and kept my hands busy during those long evenings when the house felt too quiet. Life was simple, peaceful even. Then the developers showed up. In 2019, a company called Summit Ridge Development bought up all the farmland surrounding my property. Within 18 months, they bulldozed 200 acres of prairie grass and built a cookie-cutter subdivision they named Brookhaven Estates.
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
Identical beige houses with identical postage stamp yards, each one priced at $500,000 for what my grandfather would have called a chicken coop. My 15 acres sat right in the middle of it all, like a stubborn island of authenticity in a sea of suburban make-believe. The developers had tried to buy me out, of course, offered decent money too. But this land isn't for sale. Never has been. Never will be. By 2021, the new residents had formed something called the Brookhaven Estates Homeowners Association. I started getting letters in my mailbox, certified with elegant letterhead, talking about community standards and protecting property values. They wanted me to join their little club, pay fees, follow their rules. I laughed and tossed the letters into my shop's burn barrel where they curled, smoked,
this
and
lawnmower
turned
is
to
a clear
ash beside
violation.
cedar shake. Turns out that was my first mistake. Apparently, laughing at HOA demands is like waving a red flag in front of a bull. That's when I met Marla Whitcomb. She appeared one Tuesday morning in October, clicking across my gravel driveway in those ridiculous high heels like she was strutting into a boardroom instead of bothering a man enjoying his coffee. 48 years old, blonde hair pulled back so tight it probably gave her headaches, wearing a business suit that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. Mr. Harrow. Her voice had that tone that spelled trouble. Sweet as honey on the surface, but sharp enough to cut glass. I'm Marla Whitcomb, president of the Brookhaven Estates HOA. We need to discuss bringing your property into compliance with community standards. I set down my mug and looked her over, real estate agent. Judging by the oversized business card she waved like a badge. Transplant from California based on that clipped accent, and the way she kept glancing around like my place offended her. Probably the honest scent of sawdust and motor oil didn't suit her vanilla-scented world. "Ma'am," I said, keeping polite but firm, "my property was here long before your community existed. I'm not part of your HOA, don't plan to be, and only need to comply with the county code." Her smile never faltered, but something cold flashed behind those blue eyes. "I think you'll find that's not entirely accurate, Mr. Harrow. Your rustic aesthetic is affecting property values. Some residents are concerned about the kind of clientele your little workshop attracts." There it was, the first shot fired. 3 days later, I found a violation notice zip-tied to my mailbox. "Immediate action required. Structure violates Brookhaven Estates, CC and R Section 4, 2.1b. Non-conforming agricultural buildings prohibited within residential zoning overlay. Barn demolition or architectural compliance required within 30 days. Daily fines of $150 commence immediately. Failure to comply will result in lien placement and legal action." November rolled around, and Marla wasn't kidding about those daily fines. Every morning brought a new violation notice, zip-tied to my mailbox like some kind of bureaucratic advent calendar from hell. My barn was non-conforming. My gravel driveway was unapproved surfacing material. My pickup truck, parked in plain sight, was a commercial vehicle display in a residential zone. The woman had apparently appointed herself the violation fairy because the notices came faster than I could burn them. $150 a day for the barn, $75 for the driveway, $50 for the truck. By her math, I owed over $4,200 in fines just for existing on my own property for 6 weeks. But Marla wasn't satisfied with paper harassment. She launched a social media crusade worthy of a political campaign. The Brookhaven Estates Facebook group became her personal war room, filled with carefully angled photos of my place, making it look like a junkyard. Comments poured in from neighbors I'd never met, calling my barn an eyesore, and my lifestyle inconsistent with community values. I started checking that group like a car crash, awful but impossible to ignore. One particularly charming post showed my weathered barn door with the caption, "Is this the image we want for our $500K investments?" The smell of coffee couldn't mask the bitter taste of watching strangers insult 3 generations of family work. Then came the small twist that flipped everything upside down. While researching those violation notices online and digging through Colorado HOA laws, I decided to pull my original property deed from the county recorder's office. What I found made me laugh so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. When Granddad sold off parts of his land decades ago, he'd been far smarter than I'd given him credit for. The old man had retained mineral rights to the entire 40-acre parcel, including every square foot that Summit Ridge Development had built on. Every single house in Brookhaven Estates sat on property where my family still owned what lay beneath. And those mineral rights were worth serious money. A quick search showed oil and gas leases in our area going for $2,000 to $5,000 per acre annually. Marla's whole subdivision was sitting atop my family's gold mine. Here's the legal nugget that saved me. You can research property deed restrictions and mineral rights at your county recorder's office for free. Most homeowners don't realize they might own valuable subsurface assets HOAs can't touch. Armed with this revelation, I booked a consultation with Dana Morales, a property rights attorney in Boulder. Cost me $300, but watching her grin when she read my deed was priceless. "Mr. Harrow," she said, practically bouncing in her chair, "not only do these violations have zero legal standing, but you got leverage they don't even realize exists. If they keep this up, we can file for vexatious litigation and damages." My counterpunch came quick and clean. First, I installed professional-grade security cameras around my property
lawnmower is a clear violation.
Systems that uploaded footage to the cloud in real time. Then I posted a detailed legal rebuttal on the Brookhaven Estates Facebook group, complete with citations from Colorado revised statutes on HOA limits and grandfathered property rights. I attached photos of my original deed showing the mineral rights clearly highlighted and added a little kicker. "Thanks for building your subdivision on my mineral rights. We should talk." The fallout was immediate chaos. Some neighbors, like retired teacher Gloria Chin, who was tired of Marla's power trips, began commenting in support. Others, including former Marine Dan Kowalski from 3 streets over, joined in too. But plenty doubled down, parroting Marla's frantic posts about community responsibility and property investment protection. Things escalated further when I filed a formal harassment complaint with Jefferson County.
This lawnmower is a
Deputy
clear
Sheriff
violation.
Calder spent 3 hours at my kitchen table documenting every notice, every post, every threat. Mr. Harrow, this is textbook targeted harassment, he said, snapping his notebook shut. Keep your records tight. When this escalates, and it will, we'll have grounds for charges. The quiet sounds around my property changed. Instead of meadowlarks and distant traffic, I now heard the hum of camera motors and the faint clicks of security systems resetting. My peaceful homestead was turning into a fortress, but I wasn't backing down. 3 days later, I found a new notice on my mailbox, not about violations this time, but about mandatory fire safety inspections and emergency access compliance. Marla was escalating to her next phase. March brought more than melting snow. It brought Marla's next level of crazy. The woman had apparently spent winter plotting because she came back swinging with bureaucratic warfare worthy of a Soviet bureaucrat. First came a fire marshal inspection notice, official letterhead, county seal, the works. According to it, my barn posed an immediate fire hazard to neighboring structures and required inspection within 48 hours. Failure to comply would result in county-mandated demolition for public safety. The desperation smelled stronger than the coffee brewing in my kitchen. I called the real Jefferson County Fire Marshal's office, and the dispatcher sounded puzzled. Sir, we have no record of any inspection request for your address, and we don't issue 48-hour ultimatums.
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
The twist came faster than I expected. I was showing the fake notice to Gloria Chen when she squinted and said, "That font looks like the one my daughter uses for her school projects." Turns out her sharp teacher eyes spotted what I'd missed. The county seal was pixelated like it had been copied online. I reverse searched the letterhead and found the template sold on officialdocsplus.com for $12.99. But here's the kicker. The metadata showed it was created on a computer registered to M. Whitcomb Realty Group. She'd literally used her business laptop to commit federal fraud. I've seen smarter criminals on Saturday morning cartoons. But it got even better. While looking into Marla's forgery attempt, I uncovered something that chilled my blood. Her brother, Greg Whitcomb, owned a company called Horizon Commercial
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
The same outfit quietly buying up agricultural land across Jefferson County for strip mall development. Suddenly, her obsession with my property made perfect sense. She wasn't just a control freak neighbor. She was scouting for the family business that wanted my land. My counterstrike this time was surgical precision, wrapped in small-town politeness. First, I contacted the real fire marshal and requested an official inspection. Deputy Fire Marshal Ruiz arrived 2 days later with real credentials and spent an hour combing through my barn with professional gear. His conclusion? Mr. Harrow, this structure exceeds current fire safety standards. Better ventilation and sprinkler system than most new builds I've seen. I got that report in writing, stamped and notarized, with Ruiz adding a personal note. Whoever filed that fake inspection committed a serious crime. Next, I filed a formal complaint with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office for the fraudulent documents. Deputy Calder documented every detail like he was prepping a case for the Supreme Court. This qualifies as federal mail fraud since she used the Postal Service, he said, carefully bagging the fake notice. Add identity theft for impersonating a government official. She's looking at 5 to 10 years if convicted. Here's the golden nugget that could save your property. Always verify inspector credentials directly with the issuing agency. Unlicensed property inspections can result in federal fraud charges carrying serious prison time. But my favorite part came when I went nuclear with the family connection. I dug into Horizon Commercial Partners through the Colorado Secretary of State's database and found incorporation documents listing Greg Whitcomb as president and Marla as community development liaison. I posted the smoking gun evidence right on the Brookhaven Estates Facebook group. Interesting find. Our HOA president's brother owns Horizon Commercial Partners, which has filed permits for strip mall development on agricultural land across Jefferson County. The same company lists Marla Whitcomb as their community liaison. Makes you wonder what these property value concerns are really about, doesn't it? The response was thermonuclear. Within 4 hours, that post had over 1,000 comments and nearly 400 shares. Neighbors who'd supported Marla started demanding answers. Gloria Chen launched a petition for Marla's resignation. Dan Kowalski began investigating Horizon Commercial's other shady ventures. 3 HOA board members resigned rather than stay attached to the scandal. Marla's retaliation was swift and deranged. Anonymous complaints flooded county offices accusing me of running a commercial operation. My woodworking clients got threatening calls about unsafe conditions and unlicensed contracting. Someone even reported me to the IRS for running an unreported cash business. Each strike was more desperate than the last, but I documented every one. Timestamps, recordings, screenshots. I was building a case so tight, federal prosecutors would frame it. The shop smelled different now, less like cedar and varnish, more like legal paperwork and justice being sanded smooth. By May, Marla had lost half her board, most of her supporters, and the last shred of sanity she possessed. But cornered animals lash out, and she was about to prove it. The escalation began with a certified letter that made her old violation notices look like Valentine's cards. This one came from Carver, Dunn Walsh, LLP, a Denver law firm with letterhead so polished it probably cost more than my truck. Cease and desist. Immediate demolition of non-conforming agricultural structure required within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in civil action for damages exceeding $500,000 and lien placement on subject property. It was signed by one Edward Carver III, a name that practically dripped entitlement. But here's where it got funny. The document cited zoning violations using fake coordinates and bogus survey data. When I compared them with my original survey, the eastern property line was off by exactly 15 feet. Someone had digitally altered the boundaries to make my barn look too close to the subdivision. Fake surveyor stamps, manipulated GPS coordinates, the works. But that wasn't even the best part. When I called Carver, Dunn Walsh, to verify, the receptionist sounded baffled. "Sir, we have no record of a client named Whitcomb, and Mr. Carver retired 3 years ago." Marla had graduated from amateur fraud to professional-grade forgery and was still bad at it. This time, I brought in the heavy artillery. I retained Dana Morales for full representation. Her $5,000 retainer hurt, but watching her dissect those fake documents was worth every penny. "This isn't just harassment," she said, laying out the papers like evidence in a courtroom drama. "It's organized fraud involving multiple federal felonies. We're filing a Section 1983 civil rights suit, plus state charges for forgery,
This
mail
lawnmower is a
fraud,
clear
and
violation.
conspiracy." But the true nuclear option was what Dana discovered next. Those mineral rights, they were worth far more than we'd thought. "Nolan," she said, tapping a geological map covered in colored dots. "There's active oil and gas leasing 2 miles south. Market rate is minus 2.8 million over 10 years. Here's the golden nugget that saved me thousands. Title insurance often covers legal defense costs for property disputes. Many owners don't realize it can cover attorney fees entirely. Armed with this, I went public in spectacular fashion. I hosted a Save the Barn fundraiser at the VFW Hall, barbecue, bluegrass, and a property rights presentation that would have made Jefferson proud. The showstopper was announcing that any mineral revenue would fund a community scholarship program. Over
This
200
lawnmower is
people
a
came.
clear
3
violation.
county commissioners, Sheriff Davidson, even Channel 9 News. Gloria brought pies. Dan organized a veteran honor guard. The air smelled like barbecue smoke, mountain air, and sweet community redemption. The knockout punch came when Dana took the mic, unveiling poster-sized blow-ups of Marla's forged documents beside authentic ones. "This isn't neighborly dispute," she said. It's organized criminal conspiracy to defraud Mr. Harrow of property worth -2.8M land fraud. The fallout was instant. Marla's license was suspended, Horizon lost $15 million in contracts, and Greg publicly disowned his sister. But instead of quitting, Marla went scorched earth. Anonymous threats, vandalism, fresh tire ruts, spelling move. The gloves were off. Then came the document that changed everything. A rediscovered 1923 mineral deed from my grandfather. Not the summary I'd seen, but the full original, ink-faded yet legible. It stated he retained all subsurface rights to Section 15, Township 3 South, Range 70 West. 640 acres total, not just my 15. Every house in Brookhaven Estates stood on my mineral rights. Cross-referencing with Horizon's filings revealed they'd applied for oil and gas leases on that exact section, valuing it at $4.2 million annually. Their property acquisition phase meant stealing my land outright.
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
Like a freight train. The HOA that tried to force me out was sitting on land where I owned everything underneath. According to Colorado law, I could demand compensation for any surface use impacting subsurface access, meaning every street, every house, every fence post. Marla's months of intimidation had handed me leverage worth tens of millions. Dana was ecstatic. They're not just liable for harassment, she said. This qualifies for federal RICO charges, organized fraud to defraud you of property. And the scale of their greed was staggering. They'd built an entire subdivision on stolen mineral rights, orchestrated harassment to drive me out, forged documents, and thought a small-town electrician wouldn't notice. That night, I sat on my porch watching sunset paint the barn red and gold, realizing generations of Harrow's stubbornness.
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
Tomorrow, I'd start making calls. But tonight, I savored the moment when David realized he'd been holding a bazooka all along. The next morning, I called Donna Morales at 7 a.m. sharp. By 8:30, we sat in her office surrounded by coffee cups, legal pads, and enough documents to start a revolution. First things first, Dana said, spreading geological surveys across the table like a general planning a campaign. Those mineral rights don't just give you leverage, Nolan. They give you a nuclear arsenal. She'd already spoken to a mineral rights analyst who confirmed what Horizon Commercial's own papers showed. The land beneath Brookhaven Estates sat on a natural gas formation worth about $47 million over 20 years. My 640-acre mineral claim controlled access to the entire field. But the real genius lay in the legal strategy. Here's how we play this, Dana continued, eyes shining. Colorado law requires mineral owners to allow reasonable surface access for extraction. But it also mandates compensation for any improvements that obstruct subsurface use. Translation: every house, street, and sidewalk in Brookhaven was built without permission, making them technically liable for trespass damages. The federal angle was even better. Dana's contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office confirmed potential RICO charges: mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft of federal mineral rights. We're talking 20 to life if this hits trial, Dana said. But she smiled. We don't want to destroy the community. We want to save it from these crooks. The plan was brilliant. Surgical precision disguised as civic goodwill. Phase 1 was documentation and alliance building. Deputy Calder had already compiled months of evidence from the HOA harassment. Now the FBI got involved. Special Agent Rosa Torres from the Denver field office took the case, methodical as a clockmaker. Mr. Harrow, she told me during our 3-hour interview, this is one of the cleanest fraud cases I've seen. Your documentation will make prosecution straightforward. Expect arrests within 30 days. Phase 2 involved financial planning that benefited everyone but the Whitcombs. A mineral lease specialist helped structure a deal that generated community revenue without disrupting homes. The figures were staggering, roughly. Minus $8.5 million upfront in signing bonuses, money to fund scholarships, improve schools, and still secure generational wealth for my family. Here's a financial nugget most folks miss. Agricultural use exemptions can cut property taxes up to 80% if you maintain legitimate farming activity, even on small acreage. Phase 3 centered on community organizing. Gloria Chen hosted coffee and constitutional rights gatherings in her living room, teaching neighbors about property law and HOA limits. Dan Kowalski took a tactical approach, documenting suspicious activity, unmarked vehicles, and possible surveillance. His precision would have impressed the FBI. "They think they're running covert ops," Dan said, showing me photos of Horizon trucks parked nearby. "But they're about as subtle as a marching band in a library." Phase 4 was the legal ambush that would end this nightmare. Dana prepared a comprehensive federal lawsuit timed to coincide with the criminal charges: civil RICO, fraud, harassment, conspiracy, the works. But the masterstroke was scheduling the filings to align with a community meeting where I'd unveil the mineral lease benefit plan. Instead of profiting from crime, the Whitcombs would watch the neighborhood they'd tried to exploit unite against them. Agent Torres approved the timing. "Community benefit stories always play well with juries," she said. "This shifts it from property dispute to corporate predators versus working families." By late July, everything was ready. Federal agents had warrants. Dana had the civil filings locked. Gloria and Dan had the neighborhood organized, complete with county commissioner and mayoral support. The smell of victory was sweeter than mountain air, but before we could spring the trap, Marla made one final desperate move that played right into our hands. She spent July plotting sabotage like a third-rate mobster. My security cameras developed sudden blind spots. The main power line to my barn was accidentally damaged by an unlisted utility truck. Someone even sliced my internet cables, unaware I'd added a cellular backup. Then came phone harassment, anonymous calls warning my clients about unsafe conditions and unlicensed contracting. Fake Yelp reviews appeared claiming poor craftsmanship and inappropriate political discussions. They were so absurd the platform flagged them within 2 days, but not before I captured screenshots. The real twist came when my backup cameras caught footage of Greg Whitcomb himself cutting my cables at 3:17 a.m. Face clear, plate visible, bolt cutters gleaming. Even better, my system recorded audio of Greg and Marla plotting pressure tactics until he sells. They literally conspired on my property while being recorded. Here's the legal nugget. Colorado is a one-party consent state. Recordings like that are admissible evidence, but always check your laws before recording others. My response was swift. I handed the footage straight to Agent Torres. "Mr. Harrow, this adds destruction of communications infrastructure," she said, grinning. "That's another federal charge." I also filed restraining orders against both siblings, backed by 8 months of documentation and fresh video proof. Judge Coleman signed them within 24 hours. But the piece de resistance was going public. I called a security awareness meeting at the community center. Nearly 200 residents showed up, Gloria with her pie, Dan with a PowerPoint, and 3 local news stations rolling live. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, standing at the podium,
"This lawnmower is a clear violation.
Organized crime looks like in suburban Colorado." Then I played the footage, Greg cutting my cables. The audio transcripts projected behind me. The crowd erupted, gasps, outrage, cheers. Gloria shouted, "This is our neighborhood, not their racket." 3 more HOA board members resigned on the spot, and the management company canceled its contract immediately. The next morning, I found my mailbox smashed, graffiti scrawled across my barn, "Move or else," and my orchard poisoned with herbicide. Agent Torres called it escalating criminal behavior. Dana called it evidence of witness intimidation. I called it the stupidest mistake of their lives, because now we had everything we needed. September came crisp and cold, carrying the scent of justice. Marla's final gambit arrived in the form of a fake county health inspection, scheduled for 6 a.m. on the 15th, complete with bogus seals and fabricated claims about hazardous chemicals. She recruited Greg and an accomplice named Trevor Nash to pose as inspectors, planning to plant evidence to justify a forced sale. But my hidden cameras caught them rehearsing, badges and all. Their plan? frame me for environmental violations, and seize my land. The counter-trap was flawless. Sheriff Calder waited inside my barn with recording gear and a fresh cup of coffee. Agent Torres and 2 FBI agents hid outside in unmarked vehicles. At exactly 5:47 a.m.,
this lawnmower is a clear violation.
Greg with a clipboard, Trevor with bags of chemicals, Marla strutting behind them like a general. The door creaked open, and they froze at the sight of Calder's badge gleaming in dawn light. "Good morning," he said evenly. "I don't suppose you have real inspection warrants." Silence. Then clatter. Clipboard dropped. Bag half open. Marla speechless. Calder stood, voice steady. "Greg Whitcomb, Marla Whitcomb, Trevor Nash, you're under arrest for criminal trespassing, fraud, impersonating officials, and evidence tampering." Agent Torres stepped in with 2 FBI agents. "Add federal mail fraud, wire fraud, civil rights conspiracy, and RICO violations." Miranda rights echoed through the barn like music. By 7 a.m., my land looked like a crime show set. FBI teams photographing evidence, deputies securing the scene.
This lawnmower is a clear violation.
Gloria rallied neighbors to give statements while Dan coordinated the crowd with military precision. Channel 9's reporter stood on my porch announcing, "What began as neighborhood harassment has turned into federal racketeering charges in a multi-million-dollar fraud." Then Dana arrived, holding a stack of papers, and announced to the cameras, "Today's arrests conclude one of the most documented property fraud cases in Colorado history." She held up the forged notices and cable-cutting footage. This wasn't neighbor drama, it was organized crime disguised as HOA enforcement. The cheers were deafening. Neighbors applauded. Someone yelled, "Fire!" Gloria cried. Dan saluted. I took the mic. 8 months ago, Marla Whitcomb said I didn't belong here. Today, this land funds scholarships, fire services, and conservation for the next 100 years. The applause thundered. Here's the final legal nugget. Trespassing applies even if someone claims official authority. No HOA or fake title overrides private property rights. The fallout was immediate. Horizon lost, minus $3.8 million a year plus royalties. Dana structured it to protect the town and fund a scholarship foundation. Now, every September, we hold the Barn Festival. Bluegrass, barbecue, kids learning property rights. My orchard thrives again. My shop has expanded into a woodworking cooperative, and the farmhouse hosts coffee and constitution sessions every Saturday. Gloria teaches, Dan mentors veterans, and even former critics now lend a hand. The case, Harrow v. Whitcomb, set precedent across Colorado, inspiring new HOA transparency laws. Sheriff Calder, now the elected sheriff, uses our story as a training example. Agent Torres earned a commendation from the FBI. 3 law schools teach the case as proof that knowledge, patience, and community can defeat corruption. My grandfather's legacy endures, land preserved forever, mineral wealth securing community growth. Each dawn, I still sit on my porch, coffee in hand, listening to meadowlarks over the hum of Highway 36. The property Marla tried to steal has become the heart of a community built on courage, cooperation, and law. Your turn. Have you faced HOA harassment or property rights violations? Share your story below. And if this one inspired you to dig into your own deeds, hit subscribe. Next week, I'll tell you about a retired librarian in Kansas who used an 1880s railroad easement to stop a casino and save her town. Because sometimes the best weapons against modern greed are old laws and determined people who know how to use them.